Hey friends, Bob Bordone here. So in today's video, I'm going to give you 3 tips to decide whether you should stay in a dialogue with someone who's engaging in behavior that you see as threatening or abusive or bullying. But first, let me give you a definition of what I mean by dialogue. Dialogue is an opportunity to share your views and listen to somebody who has views that are different from your own. So it's different from a debate where we're trying to win the argument. It's different from a negotiation where we're trying to necessarily come up with a solution or close a deal. Now, certainly dialogues can be part of debates and they could be part of negotiations. But a dialogue itself is really distinct. It's just an opportunity to engage in a challenging conversation. So today is the last day of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. This is this annual meeting that brings together the biggest business leaders in the world, the biggest leaders of think tanks, academics, and political leaders. And it turns out that the theme for this year's conference was Spirit of Dialogue.
The foundation of moving forward has to build on cooperation and dialogue. It is the only way to identify shared interests and chart pathways forward together. This is why the theme of this year's annual meeting is the spirit of dialogue.
So I'm recording this on the Tuesday of this week. We are, I believe, in day 2 of the conference, and we're a day before US President Donald Trump was slated to address the World Economic Forum. So even without the context of whatever he ended up saying on Wednesday, we know that there's this really interesting question. So the question I want to engage in today is one that I get often, which is how do I decide whether I should engage in a dialogue with somebody who I'm experiencing as threatening or bossy or bullying? And I'm going to offer some tips on that and try to relate it to what is going on in the world today. So over the last few days, we have seen an escalation in the American president's interest in taking control of Greenland. Now, even in his first term, Donald Trump said that the United States needed to have territorial control over Greenland. And his reasons there really related to national security, related to a possible threat from Russia. In response to both Danish and also NATO attempts to address that concern of security by beefing up both American and NATO troops in Denmark, more recently, the president has shifted his reasons why the United States needs to take control of Greenland. So specifically, first, he said he had a personal psychological need to actually have the United States own Greenland. And then this past weekend, after the Prime Minister of Norway and Denmark sent texts to the American president, actually asking for, yes, dialogue, a chance to de-escalate the tensions, the president said in response that because Norway did not give him the Nobel Peace Prize, even though he is the most deserving president or person ever to get that prize, peace wasn't that important. And then on Sunday night, the president on Truth Social released a meme of him, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and American Vice President J.D. Vance actually planting an American flag on Denmark and saying American control established in 2026. So all of this seems like a lot of bullying, and yet the American president is at a conference talking about dialogue. So how do I decide? Do I continue in a dialogue or do I walk away? Tip number 1 is you need to ask yourself this question. Is the person on the other side of the dialogue engaging in a spirit of good faith or goodwill? And I want to distinguish that from whether they are engaging in a skillful way or in a productive way or in a way that's likely to actually reach an agreement. But in order for a dialogue to actually be worthwhile, there at least has to be a modicum of goodwill from the other side, a sense of genuine willingness to engage, even if they're going to do it in ways that might not model best practices. Second tip here is that you have to assess three things: the situation, the dynamics, and the history. So let me say a little bit about each. The situation. That is this the right moment or timing to actually have a dialogue? Let me give you an example. If you are in a meeting and one of your colleagues says something that maybe you think is insulting or offensive or inappropriate, this is probably not the right moment to have a dialogue with them. There's a bunch of other people in the room. You might be emotionally triggered. It's not the right moment. Instead, you have to actually create the situation that would be appropriate for dialogue. The second thing, the dynamics, is really saying, what is the broader context of this relationship? Are we connected in other ways that are meaningful? So to use the example of the United States and Denmark and Europe, certainly the context is way broader than simply, is the United States going to take over Greenland? There are deep economic ties, deep military ties through NATO, and of course, deep cultural ties between Europe and the United States. And then the third question is taking a look at your own and the other party's history. So what do I mean by that? Well, is there a long-term culture of abuse or trauma or ongoing beratement? And if that's part of the history, it may suggest a dialogue is not something we should be doing here. Third tip is assessing your BATNA. BATNA is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. And before I engage in a dialogue or decide to walk away, I have to think about, if I walk away from this dialogue, what can I do without an ongoing set of interactions or agreement with this person? That list of things, I pick the best of them, and that is my BATNA. So this is where things can get complex. In a friendship that might be long and deep, the best alternative to the negotiated agreement might be losing the friendship. Okay, that's sad, but we can live with it. In a business relationship, it might be losing some piece of business. In a family relationship, it might be tougher, right? It might be, if I sever relations with my brother, I don't show up for Christmas anymore. And that could be quite painful. As you think about the BATNA, though, you want to think about both your substantive interests, let's say the business concerns, but there's another set of interests that really matter here. And I think this is a really challenging moment for Western Europe and Denmark, which is around what we might call values or non-substantive interests. Substantively, the BATNA of Europe is relatively weak. That is, Europe needs the United States, both from a military perspective and also from an economic perspective. But there's also this question about, what are our key values? What holds us together in terms of a sense of integrity? And so ideas around liberty, freedom, democracy, territorial sovereignty, and respecting each other's territorial sovereignty, those interests really matter. And it may be the case that some of those interests are so important that the BATNA of walking away may be perceived as better than the BATNA of staying involved in a dialogue. So, truth is that dialogue, this opportunity to connect across lines of difference, is really essential in every relationship. But when you are dealing with someone who you experience as bullying or threatening, you should ask yourself 3 questions. 1, can they engage in a spirit of goodwill, which is really different from whether they're skillful? 2, what is the situation, the ongoing dynamics of the relationship, and your own history? And then 3, what is your BATNA should you choose to walk away? So if you've decided to walk away and want to know what to do next, watch this next video where I'll offer 3 key tips on how to handle that. Be sure to subscribe to this channel and keep on watching the next video. Want to be a better negotiator? Watch this next video.